you have all the certifications that are predominantly lender certifications that do not apply to general purpose appraisal. Also, beyond that, we have to keep in mind when we're doing our reports, who's the end user? If you're looking at 1004 and you're using the UAD, the data set, the machine reads are going to know what it is. The reviewer is going to look at it and know what a C3, Q2, they're going to understand those. You put that in 1004 and give it to basic layman, and they're going to be going, what?
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
And welcome, everybody. Dustin Harris hanging out in the podcast chair in the new studio. It's home studios today, so we're excited to try this out. Had a little bit of some technical glitches trying to get into this today with my guest, but excited to dive in and see how it sounds in the new studio. Thank you for joining me, folks. I appreciate you listening. Our numbers continue to grow. We're very appreciative of that. And we got a fun show for you today. I want to first, of course, pause and remind you, we are sponsored by three great companies. Alamode being one of them. Alamode, of course, is the software that I use to fill out my appraisals, as many of you do across the country. Those of you who are not using Alamode need to check it out. Go to 800-ALAMODE. You can call them, or you can go to the website at www.alamode.com. We are sponsored, of course, by DataMaster. DataMaster is the company that allows you to save 30 to 60 minutes per report. Do you want to learn more? Check them out. Go to datamasterusa.com. Again, it's datamasterusa.com. And finally, we are sponsored by Working RE Magazine. Working RE, of course, is the place that I go pretty much twice a week to check out what's going on in the appraisal world. You should be as well. Sign up for their free newsletter at workingre.com. Again, it's workingre.com. Well, folks, we got a fun show for you today. I got a guest on the line, Mr. Michael. I'm laughing already because I know I'm going to screw this up, Mike. It's Buuchianeri. How did I do?
Correct. You did great.
Well, Mike, I appreciate you reaching out to me. I'll just briefly give a quick bio, and then we're going to dive right into this today. Michael he's a state certified residential real estate appraiser. He's the principal of MJB Appraisals in
Hillsburg, California.
Okay. Where is that, Mike?
From San Francisco, it's about 75 minutes north.
Okay. All right. Do you cover San Francisco?
I don't.
Okay. All right. You're not one of the, I had a mastermind student that was in San Francisco. He called some of the guys that came in the bridge and tunnel guys. He didn't like them too much. So Mike is also a board member of the Real Estate Appraisers Association of the Northern Bay and chair of its ad hoc PIP committee. He specializes in high balance properties. And the General Purpose Appraisal, where he mentors other appraisers interested in promoting that component of their appraisal business. Mike, I appreciate you reaching out to me. You reached out to me a couple of weeks ago, and it's taken us a while to put this together, and I appreciate you coming on. And we're going to talk today a little bit about an article that you put out in the Appraiser Focus magazine, which of course is put out by the National Association of Appraisers. Tell us, what is the title of that article, and why did you do that?
Basically, how it came about. The article is called the General Purpose Appraisal, and the byline with that is, consider adding this worthwhile valuation component to your list of services. I was talking with John Dingman. I know John. He said, so what do you specialize in, Mike? And I said, well, I just do residential appraising. He said, but what areas of specialization do you have within that? I said, well, I do a number of high balance and luxury properties. And I also do the general purpose appraisal. And he goes, I'd like you to consider writing an article then for our Appraiser Focus national magazine. I said, I went home and chatted with my better half, and he says, sure, go ahead and do it. And I said, I'll do it. And so it kind of went pretty quickly. It sounded pretty good, and I sent it off. And I guess John and I share a similar feeling that this is an area that's kind of underserved and overlooked by a lot of appraisers. We are problem solvers, and I think this is one area that really you talk about creating value, but you can. Not everybody wants to get a mortgage or buy or sell property. Sometimes there are extraneous things that come up, and many people either say I don't work that, or I don't know how to take care of it, and it just seems to be a nice niche and a growing niche, as far as I can tell from my work.
Yeah. It's interesting as you read the article. I kind of get the feeling that there's not as many appraisers out there using GPAR as I thought there was, and I think we all live in our own little bubble, right? And the
Sure.
GPAR has been a part of my repertoire, if you will, for quite a while, and I guess I get in this mode of thinking that everybody uses it as much as I do, but I don't know that that's the case.
No, I don't think there are a great number of appraisers that are utilizing it. There are a fair amount that utilize it to some degree if they get a phone call here and there. I did a recent roundtable for the Real Estate Appraisal Association, REAA, and that's connected also with Sacramento's REAA. And we did a roundtable, and I was hosting that with another appraiser, and so we just started to ask questions. How many people do general purpose appraisals? And there were 5 tables, so we'd change every so often, every 25, 30 minutes. And sometimes there'd be 1 or 2 hands only that do general purpose appraisals. Other times there were like 8 or 9 out of 12 people that were doing it.
Huh.
Then I asked, how many of them do you do on an average basis in a year? And a lot of the ones said that they did 10 or less a year. And so they really weren't working it the way they were working the lender appraisals. And so I asked them, how come? And the answers ranged from, I'm just much more comfortable doing what I've always done, which is the lender appraisal. I'm not that sure about it because I haven't worked it that heavily. And, and of course I encouraged them. I said, you really should look at that. This can be a great way to be synergistic to help yourself as well as help other people.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think you hit on something. I think a lot of this has to come down to what appraisers are used to. If you're trained on the 1004 and that's what you're used to doing, that you don't know what you don't know. In fact, I had an experience a couple of months ago when I was coaching a set of appraisers, and I think there was probably 10 to 15 on the call. And we brought up, and I kept saying the word GPAR, and finally someone interrupted me and says, "What do you keep saying? What are you saying?" And I said, "The GPAR." And they said, "The what? I've never even heard that. Like I'm at a loss." And I said, "Well, the General Purpose Appraisal Report." And, "Oh, okay." And they kind of knew, I think it was just what I was saying. I think they were aware of the form itself, but I don't think that we, as you pointed out, I don't think a lot of appraisers use it very frequently. In fact, I wonder how often we don't use it when we should. And let me just tell you an experience that I had. Several years ago, I was an expert witness in I think it was a divorce case, if I remember correctly. And I'm on the stand, and I'm, and of course there's an appraisal on the other side as well. And, they're looking at this appraisal report and they're going back and forth. And I realized that this other appraiser had done a general purpose appraisal on a URAR. I mean, that was the form that he had brought to the stand with him. And I thought, wow, I mean, if we don't even know enough to know what form to use, we're really in trouble.
Yeah, that's completely inappropriate. The 1004, you have all the certifications that are predominantly lender certifications that do not apply with general purpose appraisal. Also, we have to keep in mind when we're doing our reports, who's the end user? If you're looking at a 1004 and you're using the UAB, the data set, you put that in 1004 and give it to basic layman, and they're going to be going, what?
No, exactly right. When we write on the 1004, we're typically writing to a client who is used to seeing the 1004, and most of the time, it's fairly understandable. One of our jobs, of course, is to adhere to USPAP, and USPAP is very clear that we are not to be misleading to the client or to the reader of the report.
Right.
I think you've made an excellent point when you put forth a 1004. for that something should be, legalities aside, the certifications aside, you've got Fannie Mae certifications that are very clear that this is for a mortgage transaction, but you put that aside and just understanding, I think is much, much different. In fact, let's talk just briefly, if you don't mind, Mike, about the form and the differences between, say, a 1004. Other than the certifications, we know that those are different, but because of the Fannie Mae certifications. But in general, if somebody's not used to using a GPAR form, what are the major differences in your mind?
I think flexibility is the first thing that comes to mind. The other thing is, as the GPAR has evolved, so have the forms. I mean, I know when I first started doing the general purpose appraisals, I think the American Institute, I think it was an AI, it was either a 1,000 or a 10,000 that was the form, but it was like an all-in-one type of report. So you'd have pages upon pages that didn't apply. It was for an income property, but slots for that. But now I use a la mode. If you look under general purpose appraisal, general purpose forms, in other words, you have a self-contained report that you don't have to kind of patch together like you used to in the old days. Then you don't have to modify the form. The form is set up for the range of uses that you would, in just about every case, need there. But it allows for you to follow your own comfort and, solving the problem.
For those who are not used to using this form, in your mind, Mike, what's the benefit to using a form like this, say, over just doing your own restricted report on a Word document, for example?
That's really a good question, Dustin. I think I like it because it feels comfortable to me, because I realize that I'm doing a different report. I'm having a different focus than I have. Sure, we're talking about valuation, but many of the things that I do are estate appraisals. I've done some divorce. I don't do any expert witness, but majority of it is estate. There's always these days someone in the family that has passed, and if they don't get that stepped up value, then there are some huge tax consequences that may occur. Usually they're being told by the realtor or their accountant or attorney that they need to get an appraisal. And so that's where we fit into that niche. And so those specific forms allow me to be comfortable and free to, take care of the problem.
Yeah, I've been using the restricted report quite a bit over the last couple of years, more and more. But I find that I tend to drift back to the GPAR on a pretty regular basis, just because forms are what we know, as you pointed out earlier, and forms sometimes make it easier to remember everything that you need to remember on each of these reports, and make sure that we're compliant with what we're doing. We're talking today with Mike Buuchianeri. He is an appraiser out of California, and he is talking to us about the GPAR and the importance of the GPAR. I want to pause here, of course, to remind you that we are sponsored by three great companies. One of them has already been mentioned by Mike, a la mode. He said that he uses a la mode. I, of course, use a la mode as well. And I'll tell you that one of the great things about a la mode is the ability to be able to get any form that you need and to be able to customize. I love that as well, to be able to put your own forms into other forms, if you will, or other templates that allow you to be able to mix and mingle and be able to accomplish everything that you need to accomplish as an appraiser. They really, truly do have the appraiser in mind. Check them out. Go to alamode.com or 800-ALA-MODE. Speaking of having the appraiser in mind, how about a company that, of course, is run by appraisers, started by Mr. Rick Lithriff. This is DataMaster, of course, and DataMaster will allow you to be able to download information into your report that you normally would have to type, folks. That saves you on two levels. First of all, it saves you time, about 30 to 60 minutes per report. And second of all, it saves you on mistakes. When you fat finger something, when you've got that human problem of looking at one thing and putting in something different, you're not going to have that problem with DataMaster. We're talking MLS, we're talking tax information, we're talking the data that you normally either have to do yourself or pay someone else to do. Again, saving 30 to 60 minutes per report. That's DataMaster. Go to datamasterusa.com to check them out. Again, it's datamasterusa.com. And of course, Working RE magazine has been with us from the very beginning. Working RE is the go-to place to find out what's going on in the appraisal world. If you're interested in what your profession is doing and what the future looks like, check them out. Go to workingre.com. You'll be surprised, I think, at how much information is found on that website and very easily accessed. We're talking appraisers across the nation, and of course the two main writers over there, David and Isaac, very on top of what's going on in the appraisal world. Check them out. Go to workingre.com, everybody. It's again workingre.com. All right, folks, welcome back. We're talking with Mike Buuchianeri out of California, and we're talking about the GPAR. Welcome back to the program, Mike. Appreciate you joining me today.
Thank you.
Are you cringing every time I say your last name? Because I am.
You're doing a great job.
So we're talking about the GPAR today. We're talking about the General Purpose Appraisal Report and some of the uses. And I know we've talked about a few of those. I've used them for divorce cases. You've used them for estates. Tell us, why should an appraiser look at the GPAR form? What are some other uses out there for this particular form, Mike?
Well, actually, I think, Dustin, there are myriad of uses. You mentioned divorce. I've done a number of divorces, done a great deal of the estate, done a number of working in the higher balance and luxury properties, even people that are paying cash, as you know, for some of those big properties. The days counting down for contingency, and all of a sudden they're 4 or 5 days away from it, and they're thinking, "Oh my God, am I paying too much for this property?" And then they get what I call the yips, and then they say, "I need an appraisal to make sure that I'm not paying too much for this." So, in addition to that, back when I first was getting into this, I took a class from a really good instructor, and it was a wonderful 3-hour class. And so, basically, I just started looking at got home and I printed out the General Purpose Appraisal form, and I read through it and kind of compared it with the URAR, and I started thinking about how this could come into be another arrow in my quiver, so to speak, and how it could be another component of my business. So you have flexibility there too, and of course you get paid right away. It does over the course of a year if you do enough business, as I do. It's significant. It really is. And it keeps you from getting in a rut, so to speak. I mean, I love the work that I do, and I think many appraisers love their work, but I think some are caught up in the daily. Every week is the same, and I kind of like to have renewal in my business, try to continue to learn and try to market. And so this has been just, I think, a win-win-win all the way around working in this area, and I'm so glad that I took that class from it.
That is great. Let's talk about that. I know a lot of appraisers are a little bit, they're anticipating what may be coming this year, 2019. There's been a lot of changes in the appraisal world, a lot of changes in the lender world specifically. And I know a lot of appraisers are possibly looking at branching out and doing some different things. What would you recommend to an appraiser who's looking at this particular form and maybe changing their business model a little bit this year?
Well, I think, again, I would strongly suggest that they attend a class, and I would say a live class. I do a number of webinars at the same time, but my mentor many years ago told me whenever you can, try and take a live class because you're going to typically learn more and get better interaction in a Socratic environment instead of one that's just purely didactic where they're teaching you and you're just taking notes. And that's the way it was when I took this class on the General Purpose Appraisal. I think every appraiser probably knows right away, are you somebody that wants to be sitting on the witness stand? You can make some really good money there in court. Are you comfortable with having to be cross-examined, et cetera? Some people are going to say, no way. Other people say, sure, that sounds good. So I think there are plenty of buckets for people to pick. I want this one, or I want these 4, and I want those 2. And I think that works really well. And then once they've made that decision to work in that market, then it's about marketing. And I believe still, rather than mailing or emailing, I think the personal touch is really important. And so when I can, I try to meet a realtor at a home for the purchases. I'm doing those appraisals many times. I've used my lockbox key in the past and go in and do my appraisal on the vacant home and then move on to the next. But I found by meeting with the respective, usually the listing, but it could be the selling realtor, to talk with them and make sure you're asking everything about the property. And then at the end, when they're ready to leave or you're both ready to leave, let me just mention this too. to you and just take a couple of minutes here. But I don't know if you're working with anybody, but I work heavily in this area as well. And most of the responses I got from realtors, no, I don't have an appraiser that I'm working with. And you know what? I actually do have a client whose grandfather died, and they're looking for some correction, and I didn't know how I was going to be able to help them. And so anyway, I've done that now for about 5 years. And sometimes you won't get anything for maybe a year. Then all of a sudden, 1 month up, and they said, I got this. You gave me your card about a year ago. And anyway, my plan is blah blah blah. Anyway, the whole thing has worked out very, very well, because now I have probably a regular group of probably 30 to 40 realtors that are using me for this general purpose appraisal, and I'm continuing to expand it as well.
Love it. Love it. Well, Mike, this has been very informative. And I think as appraisers look toward the future and the things that can be done, I think, there's a lot of opportunity there. And the world can be scary when you've, proverbially got all of your eggs in one basket. Say that's the, the Fannie Mae work that so many of us do. But there's so many opportunities out there when we branch out. And I just appreciate you joining me and sharing that with our listeners. One more time, your article is found in Appraisal Focus magazine. Tell me the article name again so that appraisers can read more.
The article is the General Purpose Appraisal. It's in the fourth quarter Appraiser Focus magazine put out by the National Association of Appraisers.
Well, congratulations. It's well written and you're well spoken. I think this is a plethora of information that can help appraisers as we move forward and possibly change and expand our business models. And thanks again for joining me, Mike.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Dustin. Hopefully we can chat again. But I've listened to so many of your podcasts and the articles that you write, and it's a real good service, and you're a strong resource for us. And I'm happy to chat with you.
Oh, the pleasure's been mine, but I appreciate that. Thank you so much, and folks, we will catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.
All right, there he is. Can you hear me okay?
I certainly can, Dustin.
Nice. Very good. Let me adjust your levels just a titch. I don't have as much control. You're actually in my new studio. This is the second interview I've done in my new studio, so this will be fun.
Okay.
Let me see if I can turn up your volume. There we go. All right, give me just a test 1, 2, 3 on your side.
Test 1, 2, 3.
For some reason, it's not coming through. Okay, hold on a second. Let me play with this for a minute. It's not your fault, it's mine. I can hear you just fine, but the computer can't for some reason. So let me change a couple things. Talk to me.